Since it was liberalized in such a dramatic way in the last 2 or 3 decades, the financial sector has not performed the functions that it is supposed to do very well at all. Financial markets are so riddled with market imperfections, it has become sort of necessary to have government action to correct these market failures. Public development banks can be a very important answer to the limitations of private financial markets. And we have that some of the most successful economies, like, for example, Germany in Europe, China in Asia, have actually major public development banks which work extremely well.
Development banks can help in difficult financial times, but also in economic growth, because they focus on the long term and they focus on long-term investments. That's their specialty, and that means that they can provide for infrastructure, for other long-term investments, loans or financings for between 5 and 10 and even more years. And not run away when there is a crisis, because development banks are used to crisis and look and know that in the long run they can get their money back.
So one key strategy to revitalize the European economy, to spearhead a recovery, has been to increase financing for investment. I think now it is necessary to have, as a complement to the private financial sector, have public development banks. These public institutions can provide more finance to compensate for the decline in private flows and thus lessen the negative impact on the real economy. Secondly, these public development banks can finance key sectors and key activities to achieve growth and structural transformation that is needed to generate new jobs. For example, now to finance the new green economy that we need in Europe and in the developing world.
It should be a joint initiative. I think there are obviously much more commercial banks, and that's why she's probably pushing for development banks to be involved as well. I think development banks are able to stretch commercial banks. I mean, they're able to provide longer tenors, to run certain risks, to provide seed capital as well. But at the same time, you need the sector knowledge very often of the commercial banks, and you need the structuring skills of the commercial banks. I think the joint initiative between the two institutions will have, the two types of institutions will have the greatest effect in the end.
So we can have a diversified financial sector where you diversify risks not just within institutions but across institutions, where you have institutions which compete with each other to provide the best services to the final users who are in the real economy, rather than undermine the real economy, to be not a bad master, allow the financial sector not to be a bad master, but to be a good servant.